Hey guys, what's up? It's Mark here from Poolshed Games, and today it is the official first episode of The Quest for Gaming at College Season 3. That's right, we are 3 seasons in. That means 3 semesters. Wow, this will be the 3rd semester that we're going to start covering this today. As it turns out, we have D&D, which is on Monday nights. We're going to be doing Dystopia Rising on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And if we don't do it both days, we'll do board games one day and the RPG another day. And that's it for up here, because Wednesday nights I have a night class, so there's no gaming on Wednesday nights. And Fridays I go home. And I don't know what we're going to be doing Friday nights back home. There's a Star Wars campaign right now. It's up in the air as to how we're going to continue that. And we're going to do miniature gaming every other Friday. So like Dystopian Wars or Drop Zone Commander, Infinity, War Machine, any of that stuff. But anyway, we had our first game of D&D Monday night, which was interesting. I have a feeling this semester that the game is going to be a lot more, I guess, just ridiculous than serious. And I'm going to wrap my head around that. Because one of the things that happens with gaming at college is you'll get gaming groups, and after a while, a number of your players might be a year or two ahead of other players, and so they graduate before the rest of the players in the party. So your party changes, it evolves, it morphs, and that's what happened this semester. 2 of the other players that were in the party graduated, and they were the players that had more of a mindset of like I do, where it's more serious, we're more down to earth when we play. And now the group is comprised of players who have a different kind of mindset. That's a lot more goofy, it's a lot more comedic, which is nothing wrong with that. It's just I have to wrap my head around that now because we don't have the even split. We have a majority of that camp. And Monday night was fun. It was a good time. We essentially have a luchador. He's a dwarven fighter, and he is just focusing on grappling and unarmed combat, and it's kind of funny. He has 2 luchador masks. One is magical, and the other is just one he made out of dragon's hide from the dragon we killed last semester. So that's kind of cool. Our sorceress got a new familiar because the owl she had died. So now we have a white dragon that's kind of like an overactive chihuahua. Because he's a runt, so he's not very big yet. He's kind of like that big, And a lot of fun was had there by all. The DM wanted us to come up with a exploring company name. And after about 20 minutes of names that were just horrible, we settled on Almost Heroes, which is fitting because God knows we're not actually heroes in that game setting at all. At least not by choice. It's more by design, where we end up being heroes because, well, we happen to be there. Not so much because we went out of our way to be there. But yeah, getting back, we're all playing the same characters we had from last semester. So getting back into that kind of, what was I doing with this character is a little tricky. My cleric, he hit sainthood. I understand where I'm going with him, but I'm not sure where I want to take it. Part of me wants to see how the next couple of game sessions go and see if I'm happy with the character or not. Because if I'm not, I might just ask if I can make a new one. Sometimes it's really hard to pick up an old character after you take a couple of months off. At least I think that way. I have the same problem with video game RPGs. If I take some time off from playing and I come back to the character, I'm like, what was I doing with this guy? I mean, unless it's very clearly obvious. If it's like a subtle character progression, I'm like, I don't really remember where I was going with this exactly. But that's D&D. We each kind of have our own personal quests that as a group we're going to work on completing, which I think is kind of nice. It's just going to give us a little bit of something to focus on and get stuff done. So that's our D&D. Now for Dystopia Rising, we made characters last week. So far I have 3 players. I think there's the potentiality for 2 more, depending on what their schedules turn up being. And the funny thing is, currently, the group decided, because in Dystopia Rising you can take drawbacks and advantages, like in some other RPGs. Excuse me. And one of the advantages that the entire group of players decided to take was they all owe a debt to someone. So they're all kind of on the run, not from the law, but from debt collectors, which might mean that later in the campaign, bounty hunters might come after them, debt collectors, slavers, things like that, which is kind of fun for me because they gave me an avenue to work with for the group that I didn't know if I was going to have. Well, I had no intention of having. And I think I might request for players coming in that they give their character that kind of a background. Now, it doesn't have to be that their character's in debt. They could go with a wanted character, or they could go with a character that's hunted by one of the churches. But I think it'd be interesting to keep this idea of characters on the run becoming, being the heroes in this post-apocalyptic zombie setting, because it'll give the characters more depth and a little bit more interest to them. I'm still waiting on character backgrounds from the players, but that's something that'll come whenever it's ready to come out. I think I'm going to make a little chart for them to roll on to see who they owe money to, just to give that a little bit of a cemented fix to it. But aside from that, the campaign's pretty much up in the air after the initial adventure, because I'm using one of the setting books, and the setting is very large. They can explore. If the players want to explore, they can. I'm not going to railroad them into going to one place or another. And I kind of like that in Dystopia Rising. I read through the combat rules, and I've everything. The only thing I really need to read real quick before the game is vehicle rules. So I'm trying to decide if I want to give the group a vehicle or if I just want them to hitch a ride. Because a lot of times I've found that if you give a group a vehicle, it becomes sometimes a bigger character than the characters in the group do. And that's not fun for the most part, because then you have to work on challenges to disable the vehicle and things of that nature. But I'm not sure yet. It depends on how hard it is to get around without a vehicle for the players. So that'll be happening tonight, hopefully. We didn't play last Tuesday. Well, this Tuesday passed, because one of our players was ill. So, ironically enough, we sat down and played the board game Pandemic, which, if you've never played Pandemic, it's a cooperative board game for 2 to 4 players. And the players take on the role of, scientists or contingency planners, medic, quarantine specialist. You're all some kind of an individual who's geared towards fighting disease. And in the game, there's 4 different diseases that as the game progresses, you're trying to beat. It's the players versus the game. And let me just say, we got cocky after the first game we played because we won. We won because we had a good group of roles, because each class basically gives you an ability. And then we decided to play on hard mode, which there's cards called epidemic cards. And when an epidemic card happens, you up the infection level, you infect a new city, and it can cause outbreaks, and it's just a bad thing. And in easy mode, you play with 4 of those cards. Hard mode, play with 5. And we got 2 back-to-back, which is just the worst thing. The only thing I can think of worse than that would be getting 3 back-to-back. That would be pretty terrible. But needless to say, in the second game, the game won. We lost. Now, we had minor victories, but we didn't beat the game. It's one of those competitive cooperative games, where there's 3 ways for you to lose. There's 1 way for you to win. And I think those games are fun. Sometimes it's nice to work with the other players against the game rather than against each other to win the game. But that's what we did Tuesday. Tonight, hopefully, we'll be doing Dystopia Rising. If not, we'll just play board games or Flux or something. Which, it's a nice thing about having games to bring to college and having other people that bring games to college. You can be very flexible in what you do. And I think that's one of the best parts about gaming at college is you're not locked into one thing over and over and over again. I mean, you can be if you don't have the option of new things, yes. But for someone like me who's been gaming for a long time, it's easy to be like, I'm going to bring a new board game, or I'm going to bring a card game, or like, oh look, I found this cheap game, I bought it, now we can try this. So that's the nice thing about gaming. And sometimes you just play like regular old-fashioned board games. We played Monopoly last week, and it was a bunch of fun. But that's going to be it for this video. I just kind of wanted to let you guys know what was going on. Next week, I think I'm going to roll talking about the system of Dystopia Rising, like how to play it, into one of these videos. Because I've been wanting to talk about that for a while now, and this seems like a good avenue to do it. And if we start up our Pathfinder campaign again, I'll let you know about that too. But for right now, I'm going to go. I'm going to read the vehicle section in this because I need to. And hopefully you guys liked the video. If you did, leave us a comment or subscribe is always helpful. And we'll see you next time here at Poolshed Games.